"I'm going to have to let you go, Lily." He said it while sipping his coffee, my coffee, from the mug I'd bought for the office kitchen. His tone was too casual, like he was canceling a lunch reservation, not dismantling the last 5 years of my life. I blinked, trying to process the words that didn't make sense. "Let me go. Because of what exactly?" He sighed, leaning back in his chair like this conversation bored him. "You're great, but we need fresh energy. The new client wants a younger team, more adaptable. I'm sure you understand." Younger, adaptable. The words hit like tiny shards of glass, each one cutting deeper than the last. Around us, I saw coworkers pretending not to listen, their eyes glued to computer screens that hadn't been there a second ago. The intern who'd been shadowing me all week actually smirked. And when Colton added, "We'll wrap your accounts today so it's not awkward on Monday," I swear the room spun. That was the moment I realized he wasn't just firing me. He was erasing me. My name is Lily Marin, and 3 days after that humiliating Friday, he'd call me in a panic. Because the one thing he didn't realize when he let me go was that I was the only person who could save his company from the disaster waiting to hit Monday morning. Rain blurred the windshield as I drove home, fat drops drumming against the glass in rhythm with my racing thoughts. I couldn't cry. The tears were there, burning behind my eyes, but shock held them hostage. I replayed every word of that conversation, each replay making the humiliation burn deeper. 5 years. 5 years of staying late, fixing his mistakes, building systems from scratch. 5 years of being dependable, reliable, the person everyone came to when things broke. And he dismissed me like I was nothing, like those years meant nothing. My laptop sat on the passenger seat, the one containing 5 years of proprietary data I'd built, systems I'd designed, processes only I fully understood. The company ran on infrastructure I'd created, but Colton had never bothered to learn how it worked. He just knew it worked, and that had been enough. Until now. I pulled into my driveway and sat there, engine running, watching rain stream down the windows. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Raina, still at the office. "Lily, I'm so sorry. Call me when you can." I turned the phone face down. My pride was louder than my pain right now, and I couldn't bear to hear sympathy that would crack the fragile composure holding me together. Inside my apartment, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the clock. 5:43. The same time my career had ended just 2 hours ago. The silence pressed against my ears, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. I should have been angry, screaming, throwing things. Instead, I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything important and left just a shell. My phone kept buzzing. Raina calling again. My sister. A former colleague who'd already heard the news. I let them all ring through to voicemail. Finally, as darkness settled outside my windows, I opened my laptop. My old portfolio files were still there, projects from before Colton's company, work I'd done when I still believed in building things that mattered. I scrolled through systems I'd designed, problems I'd solved, innovations I'd created, evidence of competence that Colton had just dismissed as outdated. A whisper of defiance formed in the back of my mind, quiet but growing stronger. I built everything they run on, every single system, every process, every backup protocol. I was the foundation their entire operation stood on, and Colton had just kicked that foundation out from under them. He just didn't know it yet. Monday morning arrived, and I woke up disoriented, forgetting for just a moment that I didn't have anywhere to go. Then reality crashed back, heavy and suffocating. I made coffee and sat on my couch in pajamas, laptop open, pretending to search job listings while actually doing nothing. At 9:30, my phone buzzed with a text from a former coworker, someone from the development team. "Lily, I know this is awkward, but they're freaking out here. The server's down and nobody knows how to fix it." I stared at that message, reading it 3 times. The server. The custom server architecture I'd built and maintained for 3 years. The one I'd documented thoroughly but that nobody else had bothered to learn because they'd always just come to me when issues arose. I typed back slowly. "That's not my problem anymore." His response came immediately. "They're losing data. Colton's having a meltdown." For the first time since Friday, I smiled. Not a big smile, just a tiny upward curve at the corner of my mouth. It wasn't sabotage. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd simply left, taking my knowledge with me. The server was failing because they didn't know how to maintain what I'd built. That was their problem, not mine. I set my phone down and went back to my coffee, feeling something that almost resembled satisfaction warming in my chest. Tuesday morning, an email appeared in my inbox. The sender was Colton. The subject line read, "Quick question." I opened it, curiosity overriding pride. "Hey Lily, hope you're doing okay. Could you hop on a quick call? Just need to pick your brain about something technical. Shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. I read it twice, noting the casual tone, the implication that helping him was no big deal, just a quick favor between professionals. As if he hadn't fired me 3 days ago. As if those 5 years meant we were still friendly enough for him to ask for free consulting. I highlighted the email, watching the blue selection box frame his words. Then I hit delete, watching it disappear into the trash folder where it belonged. My cursor hovered over the trash, tempted to retrieve it and respond with something cutting. But I didn't. Silence would hurt him more than any words I could craft. I whispered to myself, testing the words. "You wanted fresh energy, Colton. Go find some." It felt good, empowering. For 5 years, I'd been the person who solved every problem, who dropped everything to help. Now I was discovering what it felt like to simply say no, even if I was saying it through silence. My phone rang within an hour. Colton's name lit up the screen. I watched it ring, then go to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept drifting back through 5 years of memories I'd been trying to suppress. I remembered my early days at Colton's company, eager and optimistic. I'd stayed late fixing bugs in their ancient system. I'd redesigned their entire database architecture from scratch. I'd landed the firm's biggest client by solving a problem 3 other companies couldn't crack. But Colton had never called me brilliant. He'd called me dependable, reliable, his workhorse. Those words had seemed like compliments at the time. Now I understood they were labels that kept me in a box. Brilliant people get promoted, get raises, get recognition. Dependable people get more work and quiet appreciation. He'd liked my invisibility because it made him look good. I'd been the engine running everything while he stood in front taking credit, accepting praise, building his reputation on my uncredited work. When the board asked how projects got done, he'd said, "We," and the team, without ever mentioning that the team was mostly me. I'd been safe to discard because he'd convinced himself, and everyone else, that what I did wasn't special. That anyone could maintain systems and fix problems. He was about to learn exactly how special my work had been, and I wouldn't even have to do anything except not save him. Wednesday afternoon brought an unexpected message on LinkedIn. Corrine Hale, a client I'd worked with extensively 2 years ago. "Lily, I heard you're no longer with Colton's firm. Are you consulting independently? I'd pay well for your expertise on a project." I stared at that message for a long time. Independent consulting. The idea had never occurred to me before. I'd always worked for someone else, been part of a company, had the security of a steady paycheck. Going independent meant risk, uncertainty, building everything from nothing. But it also meant freedom, control, the ability to never be fired again because I'd be my own boss. I typed a response carefully. "Hi, Corrine, thank you for reaching out. I'm exploring options right now. What kind of project did you have in mind?" Her reply came within minutes. A database optimization problem her current team couldn't solve. 3 weeks of work, consulting rate of $150 per hour. I did the math quickly. That was more than I'd made in a month at Colton's company. My hands trembled slightly as I typed back. "I'm interested. When can we discuss details?" That evening, we had a video call. She explained the project, I outlined my approach, and we agreed on terms. She sent a contract the next day. I signed it, uploaded it, and received a deposit within hours. Just like that, I was self-employed. Just like that, I had a path forward that didn't involve begging for another corporate position. I set up my workspace at the dining room table. A second-hand monitor I'd ordered online, my laptop, a good chair I'd splurged on, and endless coffee. For the first time in years, I felt creative again. Nobody was looking over my shoulder. Nobody was questioning my methods or demanding I do things the way they'd always been done. I just built, tested, refined. Corine's project was challenging but satisfying. I worked long hours, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Code was elegant, the solution clever. When I delivered it 2 days ahead of schedule, Corrine sent an email that made me smile. "This is exactly what we needed. You're a genius. Sending payment now." My bank account pinged with the deposit notification. $4,500 for 2.5 weeks of work. I stared at the number, hardly believing it. I'd earned that money through my own skill, my own business, my own terms. Nobody could take credit. Nobody could diminish it. This was mine. That night, I slept better than I had since getting fired. Maybe even better than I'd slept in the last 5 years. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive instead of just functional. Getting fired had broken something in me, but maybe it had also freed something I'd forgotten existed. Rumors started circulating online the following week. A post appeared on an industry forum from someone at Colton's company, anonymous but detailed. Anyone else's company completely falling apart? We just lost our biggest client over data loss and system failures. I recognized the symptoms immediately. They'd tried to fix the server architecture I'd built, probably hearing some freelancer who didn't understand the custom configuration. They'd broken something critical, lost client data, and now faced the consequences. Another post appeared 2 days later. Our project management system has been down for a week. Boss keeps saying it's temporary, but everyone's panicking. That was my system too. Custom built, integrated with their accounting and client management. I'd spent 8 months designing it, getting every detail right. Apparently, nobody had learned how to maintain it. Part of me felt vindicated. They dismissed me as replaceable, and now they were discovering I wasn't. Another part felt almost sorry for my former colleagues, the people who'd worked alongside me and were now drowning in chaos they hadn't created. But Colton, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction at his struggle. He'd made this bed by firing the person holding everything together. Now he could lie in it. My phone buzzed with another message from Raina. "It's bad here, Lil. Really bad. He's blaming everyone but himself." I responded simply, "Not my circus, not my monkeys anymore." Friday arrived exactly 1 week after my firing. My phone lit up with Colton's name, the third call from him that week. This time I almost answered, curious what he'd say, but I let it ring through. He called again immediately, then a third time. Then my phone buzzed with a text message. "Please, just 15 minutes, we'll pay you double your old rate." I read that message 3 times, each word tasting different. Please. The desperation was palpable, double my old rate. An admission that he'd been underpaying me for years, just 15 minutes. The delusion that 15 minutes could fix what had taken me 5 years to build. I laughed out loud, a single sharp sound in my quiet apartment. The audacity was almost impressive. He'd fired me for being too old, too set in my ways, not adaptable enough. Now he wanted me back like nothing had happened, like he could just pay me a bit more and I'd come running. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another. Finally, I settled on one word. "Busy." His response came within seconds. "Name your price." I didn't respond. Money wasn't the issue anymore. This was about something deeper, something he'd never understand. My dignity wasn't for sale at any price, especially not to the person who'd tried to take it from me. Let him panic. Let him scramble. Let him face the consequences of thinking people were disposable. That evening, Raina called. I answered this time, ready to hear what was happening. "Lil, you need to know something. He's blaming you, telling people you left things undocumented on purpose." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Of course he was. Of course he couldn't admit that he'd fired the wrong person, that his own arrogance had created this disaster. He needed a villain, and I was conveniently gone. "What exactly is he saying?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Raina sighed. "That you were unprofessional. That you sabotaged things on your way out. He's telling clients that the problems are your fault because you didn't properly train anyone before leaving." The accusation was so absurd it almost made me laugh. I'd been fired on a Friday and told to leave immediately. I'd offered to do a proper handoff and been refused. I'd written extensive documentation that nobody had bothered to read. But facts didn't matter to someone desperate to save face. "Are people believing him?" I asked. "Some. But the tech team knows better. They've seen the documentation you left. They know he's lying." I took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside me. Before, I'd been content to just walk away and let him fail. Now I wanted to make sure everyone knew exactly why he was failing. Not through revenge or sabotage, just through the simple truth. "Thanks for telling me," I said quietly. "I appreciate you." But this time, I didn't spiral into self-doubt. This time, I planned. Monday morning, an official email arrived from Colton's assistant. A consulting contract attached, offering triple my old hourly rate for short-term assistance with system recovery and documentation. Triple. The number was staggering, an admission of exactly how much value I'd been providing for poverty wages. I opened the contract and read it carefully. 30 days, consulting basis, no commitment beyond that. They'd pay me more in a month than I'd made in 6 months as their employee. I almost said no immediately. Pride demanded I refuse, walk away completely, let them crash and burn without my help. But then I realized something. This could be the perfect opportunity to watch him fall from up close. I could fix their immediate crisis, document everything properly, and make it crystal clear that their problems weren't my fault. I could protect my reputation while watching Colton squirm under the weight of his own incompetence. And I'd get paid extremely well to do it. I responded to the assistant. I'll need the following conditions met. Then I listed them. Full access to all systems, no interference with my methods, payment up front for the first week, and a clause stating clearly that I was hired to repair damage done after my termination. They agreed to everything within hours. Contract signed Tuesday. I started Wednesday, and I walked back into that office with my head high and a plan forming. Walking through those familiar glass doors felt surreal. Same lobby, same receptionist, same elevator that moved too slowly. But everything was different now. I wasn't an employee. I wasn't someone who could be fired. I was a consultant they desperately needed, and we both knew it. I signed in at reception, receiving a visitor badge instead of the employee ID I'd turned in a week ago. The badge felt like victory. Temporary, yes, but also powerful. Colton met me in the lobby, and I watched him force a grin that didn't reach his eyes. He looked tired, stressed, older than he had just 2 weeks ago. Lily, you're a lifesaver. Thank you so much for coming back. He extended his hand. I shook it professionally, keeping my face neutral. That's not what you said last time I was here. His grin flickered. Other employees walking past slowed down, watching our exchange. The office had clearly been gossiping about my return. Let's start fresh, he said, trying to regain control of the conversation. I smiled thinly. Sure, show me what you broke and I'll see what I can fix. It wasn't subtle. Several people nearby tried to hide smiles. Colton's jaw tightened, but he couldn't say anything. He needed me too much. We walked to the conference room in silence, and I felt eyes following us, whispers spreading. Lily was back. Lily was a consultant now. Lily was making 3 times what she used to make. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone felt it. The damage was worse than I'd expected. They'd hired a freelancer who tried to update my server configuration, breaking critical dependencies in the process. Data was corrupted. Backups were incomplete because nobody had maintained my automated backup system. Client files were scattered across multiple locations with no organization. It was a disaster that would take weeks to properly fix. I assessed everything methodically, taking detailed notes. Every broken system, every corrupted file, every amateur fix that had made things worse. I documented timestamps showing when each problem started, all after my termination date. I said nothing about what I was finding, just nodded, typed notes, and moved through the wreckage with professional detachment. Colton hovered nearby, asking anxious questions. How bad is it? Can you fix it? How long will it take? I kept my answers vague. I'm still assessing. I'll have a full report by end of day. What I didn't tell him was that I was also documenting everything for my own protection. Every email I'd sent before being fired, every piece of documentation I'd written, every time I'd warned about maintenance needs that were ignored. Building a comprehensive record showing that I'd done my job properly and that all problems emerged after he'd dismissed me. By evening, I had everything I needed. A clear timeline, undeniable evidence, protection against any accusation he might make, and a repair plan that would take exactly 29 days to complete, 1 day less than my contract allowed. Over the following weeks, I became indispensable again. But this time, everything was different. Every system I rebuilt, I implemented through my own private server. Every fix I made, I documented under my new LLC. Every process I created, I retained ownership of through careful contract language Colton hadn't read thoroughly. He'd been so desperate to get me back that he'd signed everything without legal review. Now I owned the intellectual property for everything I was building. If he wanted to keep using these systems after my 30 days ended, he'd need to license them from me. Legally, cleanly, perfectly ethical. I'd learned from getting fired. I'd never again build something valuable and hand over complete ownership to someone who could dismiss me on a whim. Colton didn't realize what was happening. He just saw that systems were working again, that clients were being reassured, that the crisis was subsiding. He started relaxing, his confident arrogance returning. He stopped hovering over my shoulder, started taking credit in meetings again. One afternoon, I overheard him on a phone call with a potential investor. We've implemented a new system architecture, much more efficient than before. My system architecture. Built by me, owned by me, licensed to him temporarily. I said nothing. Just kept working, kept documenting, kept building my exit strategy. In 2 more weeks, my contract would end. And then Colton would discover exactly what he'd agreed to. Exactly how much power he'd handed me, while thinking he was hearing a desperate employee grateful to return. The company hosted a client dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. I was invited. My presence required to reassure clients that technical problems were resolved. Colton sat at the head of the table, expansive and confident again. During dessert, he launched into a speech about our recovery plan and innovative solutions we've implemented. Every word was my work, my solutions, presented as his vision. I sat quietly, fork resting on my plate, watching him perform. The clients nodded along, relieved that chaos had been tamed. Then Corrine Hale, my independent consulting client, spoke up. She'd been invited because her company was considering expanding their contract. "These solutions sound impressive," she said, looking at Colton. "Did you develop them yourself?" Colton puffed up slightly. "I oversaw the development, yes, led the strategic direction." Corrine turned to me, her expression knowing. "Lily, didn't you implement something similar for our project last month?" The table went quiet. Every eye shifted to me. I met Corrine's gaze, seeing the subtle amusement there. She knew exactly what she was doing. "Yes," I said simply. "The architecture is similar, same core principles." Another client, someone I'd worked with for years, leaned forward. "Wait, Lily built this, not your internal team." Colton's face drained of color. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Well, Lily is consulting for us temporarily, but the strategic vision was Lily's," Corrine finished firmly. "I've seen her work. This has her fingerprints all over it." The rest of dinner was awkward. Colton tried to redirect conversation, but the damage was done. People were asking me direct questions, and I answered honestly. Yes, I'd designed it. Yes, I'd implemented it. Yes, it was similar to work I was doing independently. By the time we left, Colton looked like he wanted to murder me, but he couldn't say anything, because everything I'd said was true. That night, I made my move. Every system I'd rebuilt had access controls, administrative permissions that determined who could modify or maintain critical infrastructure. I'd set everything up through my LLC, Marin Analytics. Now, I quietly transferred key permissions to accounts under my complete control. It was legal. The contract I'd signed gave me authority to implement security measures as I saw fit. I was protecting the systems I'd built by ensuring only qualified people could access them. The fact that I was the only qualified person was simply reality. I created detailed documentation of every change, every permission, every protocol, stored everything securely in multiple locations. If Colton tried to accuse me of sabotage or theft, I had proof that everything was done properly, legally, by the book. When my contract ended in 3 days, he'd discover that he couldn't modify or maintain the systems without me. He'd need to hire me again, or license my work long-term, or pay someone else to rebuild everything from scratch. Each option would cost him far more than he'd have paid by simply treating me with respect from the beginning. Colton remained clueless. He thought the crisis was over, that everything was back to normal. He had no idea that every system keeping his company running was now owned and controlled by the person he'd fired. Poetic justice was taking shape, and I hadn't had to do anything wrong or unethical. I just protected my work and positioned myself strategically. The consequences would be entirely his own making. Colton's arrogance reached a breaking point 2 days before my contract ended. The company had a major presentation scheduled with potential investors, a demo of their technical capabilities meant to secure funding. I'd warned him the new client portal wasn't ready. It needed another week of testing to ensure stability under heavy load. But Colton insisted on showing it anyway, desperate to impress investors and close the deal. The morning of the presentation, I arrived early. The conference room was set up beautifully, catered breakfast, impressive slide deck ready. Investors filed in, 12 people representing millions in potential funding. Colton stood at the front, radiating confidence. I sat in the back corner, laptop open, ready to provide technical support if needed. He launched into his pitch, smooth and polished. Then came the live demo portion. He pulled up the client portal, started clicking through features. Everything worked fine for the first 2 minutes. Then the system froze. Colton clicked again, confusion crossing his face. The screen went blank, error message. He looked at me, panic flashing in his eyes. I'd warned him, clearly, specifically in writing. I shook my head slowly. He tried refreshing, restarting, accessing the backup server. Nothing worked. The system had crashed mid-demo in front of investors exactly as I'd predicted it would. The room fell silent. One investor stood up. Maybe we should reschedule when things are more stable. Others murmured agreement. They filed out within minutes, polite but clearly unimpressed. Colton stood at the front, face red, hands shaking. Then he turned to me. "Why didn't you fix it?" His voice was loud, accusatory. Everyone remaining in the room froze. I closed my laptop slowly, meeting his eyes. "I told you it wasn't ready. You chose to ignore me. You're supposed to support this company." I stood up, gathering my things. "I'm a consultant. I provided my professional assessment." "You made the decision. This outcome is entirely your responsibility." His face contorted with rage. "You did this on purpose. You sabotaged." "I did exactly what you paid me to do," I interrupted calmly. "Fixed your broken systems and provided honest technical guidance. What you chose to do with that guidance is on you." I walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned back. "You did this to yourself, Colton." Then I left him standing there, surrounded by his own failure. That evening, Corrine called. I answered immediately, grateful for a friendly voice after the disaster of the day. "I heard what happened at the investor presentation," she said. "Industry gossip travels fast. Colton's blaming you publicly." I'd expected that. "I have documentation showing I warned him multiple times about the system not being ready. He chose to proceed anyway." "Good, because I want to make you an offer." She paused for effect. "I want to fund your own firm, properly. Office space, capital for growth, client contracts already lined up. You've outgrown working for people like Colton. It's time to build something that's completely yours." I sat down slowly, processing her words. My own firm, not just independent consulting from my dining room table, but a real company with infrastructure and employees and future. "Why?" I asked. "Why invest in me?" "Because I've watched you work. You're brilliant, ethical, and you deliver. Those qualities are rare. Also, I'm not the only client who wants to work with you exclusively. I've talked to 5 other companies. Everyone's interested." She named figures that made my head spin. Startup capital, projected revenue, equity stakes. This wasn't just a kind gesture. This was a legitimate business opportunity that could change everything. My hands trembled slightly. "I need time to think about this." "Take the weekend." "But Lily, you've already proven you can build something better than Colton ever created. Stop building for other people. Build for yourself." After she hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. This was everything I'd wanted but had been too scared to pursue. Security, stability, the safety of working for someone else, those things had kept me trapped in a situation where I was undervalued. Getting fired had forced me to rediscover my worth. Now someone was offering to help me claim it. By Sunday night, I'd made my decision. Monday morning, I called Corrine back. "Yes, let's build this." My final day at Colton's company was exactly 1 month after I'd returned as a consultant. I arrived early, spent the morning completing my last tasks. Every system was documented thoroughly. Every fix was explained clearly. Everything was perfect, professional, complete. At 4:30, I sent my final invoice. The subject line read, "Final deliverables and contract termination." The body of the email was brief and professional. Attached were comprehensive reports detailing everything I'd done, every system I'd built, every fix I'd implemented. Also attached was a separate document, licensing terms for continued use of Marin Analytics systems and software. Colton would discover, probably within hours, that while I'd fixed everything, I owned the intellectual property for all new systems I'd created. If he wanted to keep using them, he'd need to pay monthly licensing fees. Alternatively, he could hire someone to rebuild everything from scratch, which would take months and cost substantially more. Both options were legal. Both were fair. Both were expensive. I packed my laptop, the same laptop I'd carried out a month ago when I was fired. This time felt different. No humiliation, no shock, just quiet satisfaction. I walked through the office one last time, nodding to former colleagues who'd watched this entire drama unfold. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked impressed. The intern who'd smirked when I was fired kept his eyes down as I passed. At the elevator, I turned back, taking in the space I'd spent 5 years of my life building. Then I pressed the button and left without looking back. Poetic symmetry. Fired on a Friday, returned by Monday, departed by choice exactly 1 month later. My terms, my timeline, my future. The news spread fast. By Wednesday, industry forums were buzzing with the story. Colton's company had tried to demonstrate their new systems to investors, only to discover they couldn't access administrative functions. Emergency calls to me went unanswered. I was done responding to their emergencies. Thursday, Kareen's firm made a public announcement. We're excited to announce a strategic partnership with Marin Analytics, founded by technology specialist Lily Marin. This partnership will deliver innovative solutions to clients seeking cutting-edge system architecture. Within hours, 2 of Colton's major clients reached out to me directly, asking about my services. By Friday, Colton's investors had officially withdrawn funding. The reasons stated in their public announcement were vague, but damaging. Concerns about operational stability and management oversight. Industry translation. They didn't trust Colton to run the company competently. I received an email from Colton that evening. No greeting, just 2 paragraphs of accusations. I'd stolen company property. I'd sabotaged systems deliberately. I destroyed his reputation out of spite. I forwarded the email to my lawyer without responding. Within an hour, my lawyer sent Colton a formal letter. Every accusation was refuted with documentation. Contracts I'd signed, warnings I'd provided, permissions I'd legally obtained. The letter concluded with a clear message. Any further defamatory statements would result in legal action. Colton went silent after that. No more emails, no more calls, just the sound of his company slowly collapsing under the weight of his own incompetence. And I felt nothing but relief that I was finally free. Over the following weeks, chaos erupted at Colton's company. 3 senior developers quit within days of each other. The office manager departed. Even the intern who'd smirked at my firing started sending out resumes. I heard through industry connections that internal morale was toxic. Colton was blaming everyone, yelling in meetings, making impossible demands. Classic behavior of someone watching everything fall apart and refusing to admit he'd caused it. One afternoon, I received a LinkedIn message that made me pause. It was from the intern. Hi, Lily. I know we didn't really work together much, but I heard you're hearing. I'm looking for new opportunities and would love to be considered. I stared at that message for a long time. He'd laughed when I was fired. He'd made jokes about being senior now. He'd been part of the humiliation that had devastated me. But he'd also been young, probably following Colton's lead, trying to fit in with company culture. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty, but because I'd moved past needing to engage with that chapter of my life. Meanwhile, Colton's desperate attempts to save his company became public. An email he'd sent to potential investors leaked online, probably shared by someone he'd mistreated. The tone was begging, promising changes, offering equity stakes at desperate prices. Industry forums dissected every line, and the consensus was brutal. His reputation was destroyed. Not by me, by himself. By years of taking credit, undervaluing people, and believing his success was entirely his own creation rather than built on others' uncredited work. 2 months after leaving Colton's company, I received a shock. He showed up at my new office unannounced, walking past reception before anyone could stop him. I looked up from my desk to find him standing in my doorway, disheveled and sweating. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His usually perfect hair was messy. He looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. "You ruined me," he said, voice shaking. His hands were clenched at his sides. I stood slowly, calmly. My assistant appeared behind him, concerned. I waved her off, indicating I could handle this. "I didn't ruin you, Colton. You fired me, remember? I just stopped saving you from yourself. You took everything. My clients, my systems, my reputation. I built those systems. Those clients chose to work with me. Your reputation destroyed itself." He stepped closer, and I saw real desperation in his eyes. "I made one mistake. You're destroying my entire life over one mistake." One mistake. That's what he thought this was. Not 5 years of taking credit, underpaying me, dismissing my contributions. Not the arrogance of thinking I was disposable. Not the public humiliation of being fired in front of colleagues. Just one mistake. "You didn't fire me on Friday and need me back by Monday because of one mistake," I said quietly. "You did that because you never understood what I actually contributed. You thought I was replaceable, and you were wrong." "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "I'm sorry I fired you. I'm sorry I didn't appreciate you. Please, I need your help." I'd imagined this moment, fantasized about him apologizing, begging, admitting he'd been wrong. Now that it was happening, I felt nothing but exhaustion. "I can't help you," I said simply. "Even if I wanted to, which I don't, I'm building something new now, something that doesn't include you." I gestured toward the door. "You should leave." He stood there a moment longer, looking lost. Then he turned and walked out. I watched him go, feeling nothing but relief. My assistant came back, concerned. "Are you okay? Should we call security?" I shook my head. "No, he's just someone who finally realized actions have consequences. He won't be back." And he wasn't. 6 months after my firing, Marin Analytics had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. We occupied a bright office downtown with windows overlooking the city. I'd hired 5 people, all talented professionals who'd been undervalued at previous positions. We built systems, solved problems, and treated clients with respect and honesty. Every person on my team got credit for their work. We celebrated wins together. When mistakes happened, we learned from them openly without blame or punishment. We'd become known in the industry for quality work and ethical practices, everything Colton's company had pretended to be but never actually was. One afternoon, I walked past my old office building on my way to a client meeting. The space where Colton's company had been was empty now, windows dark, a for lease sign visible through the glass. He'd shut down officially 2 weeks earlier, unable to recover from the loss of clients, staff, and reputation. I stood there for a moment, remembering the person I'd been when I worked there. Capable but invisible, talented but unappreciated, building everything while receiving nothing. That version of me felt like a stranger now. Getting fired had been devastating, but it had also been necessary. I'd never have left on my own, too comfortable with steady paychecks and false security. Colton had done me a favor by firing me, though he'd never understand that. He'd freed me to discover what I could build when I stopped building for people who didn't value me. I turned away from the empty building and continued toward my meeting. The past was done. The future was waiting. Last week, I received a LinkedIn message that brought everything full circle. "Hi Lily, my name is Kayla. I just got laid off from Colton's old company right before it closed. I've been following your story and your company. I know this is forward, but are you hearing? I'm a junior developer, but I'm willing to learn and work hard." I read that message 3 times. Another person hurt by Colton's mismanagement. Another talented professional wondering if they'd ever find a place that valued them. I remembered being her. Desperate, uncertain, hoping someone would give me a chance. I typed a response carefully. "Hi Kayla, thank you for reaching out. We are hearing actually. I'd like to hear more about your experience and what you're looking for in your next role. Can you send me your portfolio? Fair warning though, we build differently here. We value transparency, give credit where it's due, and believe people are our most important asset. If that sounds like something you want to be part of, let's schedule a call." Her response came within minutes, enthusiastic and grateful. We scheduled an interview for the following week. After I closed my laptop, I sat back and smiled. This was what success actually looked like. Not destroying Colton, though his destruction had been inevitable. Not proving I was better, though I had proven that. Success was building something good from the wreckage of something bad. Taking the pain of being dismissed and transforming it into opportunity for others. Creating the company I'd wished had existed when I needed it most. Colton had fired me on Friday thinking Monday would be just another week. Instead, Monday had been the beginning of his end and my beginning. He'd needed me back, but I'd never needed him. And that made all the difference. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building something they can't touch. Something that proves your worth without you having to say a single word. I'd built that, and every day I was still building.